Ready? Good evening and welcome to the December 12th meeting of the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Ellen McKay.
Here.
Dave Hale.
Here.
Andrew Romerdahl.
Here.
Brian Bennett. Craig Bennett.
Here.
Jason Norris.
Here.
Jonathan Lang.
Here.
You have a quorum. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda are minutes, and there is minutes for Thursday, October 10th, 2024. Can I have a positive motion, please?
Move to approve the minutes.
Well, you're late.
Move to approve
I'll
the
Oh,
second
minutes.
the motion.
Nope, you're late there too.
Oh, darn.
Moved by Andrew Romerdahl, seconded by Dave Hale. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Is there any objection to the minutes? Seeing none, the motion passes and the minutes are approved. Next item, special order of business, disclosures. Are there any disclosures this evening? Mr. Hale.
I was absent from the October board meeting, so I'll be abstaining from the vote on the consent agenda.
Any other? Mr. Lang.
Being newly seated, I need to abstain from the, or be removed from the vote for the consent agenda.
Thank you. Mr. Norris.
Yeah, likewise, wasn't confirmed at the time, so I'll be abstaining.
Thank you. Oop, I got one. So, next item is the consent agenda. Can I have a positive motion, please?
You, I guess.
Moved by Mr. Romerdahl, seconded by Mr. Craig Bennett. Does anyone wish to remove the one case we have on the consent agenda for further discussion? Seeing none, is there any objection to approval of the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved by unanimous consent. Moving on, nothing under appearance requests, nothing under unfinished business, nothing on the regular agenda, which brings us to public hearings. We have one case on the agenda, and it is a variance case. So I'm to introduce and explain the procedure to be followed. So the first case is case 2024-0112, and the petitioner is Lucas Bouvry, who indicates he is here. So the procedure to be followed. The procedure by which the public may speak to the board at this meeting is, after the staff presentation is completed on the public hearing items, the chair will ask for the applicant to state their case. The applicant, including all of his or her representatives, has 10 minutes for the presentation and may reserve time for rebuttal at the end of the public hearing. Throughout the proceedings, the burden of proof rests upon the applicant, who must convince the board by a preponderance of evidence that the variance should be granted. A concurring vote of a majority of the fully constituted membership of the board, minus those excused by conflicts of interest, shall be required to grant a variance. For a variance to be granted, all 8 standards must be substantially met. On the conclusion of the applicant's presentation, board members and the staff may then direct questions to the applicant through the chair. The chair will then open the hearing to public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the rules of procedure. Representatives of groups such as community councils or PTAs, etc., have 5 minutes, and individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Time is kept by the secretary. The display at the front will be green to within 1 minute of the time allowed and then turn yellow. At this time, you should begin to sum up your testimony, and at the end of the allowed time, the light will turn red and a tone will sound. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action that the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals takes. Parties have 30 days from the date of mailing or other distribution of the decision to file an appeal with Superior Court. So with that, will the staff please describe the notice given in this case?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On November 18th, 2024, a total of 80 public hearing notices were mailed in accordance with the procedures of AMC 21.03.020H. As of this writing, no public comments were received. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors did not provide comments on this case.
Are there any objections to the sufficiency of notice in this case? Seeing none, we'll move on. Will the staff please present the case?
Madam Chair, Lucas Brewery, the owner, is requesting 3 dimensional variances from AMC 21.09.060, Table 21.09-5, Table of Dimensional Standards, Girdwood Residential Districts to allow the primary residence to encroach no more than 15 feet into the required 20-foot front setback. Second, AMC 21.07.020B.9, Table 21.07-1, minimum stream setback width per site to allow the same residence to encroach completely into the 25-foot riparian edge zone. And third, AMC 21.07.020B.9, Table 21.07-1, minimum stream setback width per site to allow the resident's second floor cantilever to encroach no more than 7 feet into the 25-foot streamside zone setback. The vacant lot, platted in 1966, is long and narrow. Sandwiched between a very steep slope and Crow Creek, the building envelope suggested by the site plan is the only viable place to build a structure on this lot. The area, which is located on the northern third of the lot, encroaches a maximum of 7 feet through the second floor cantilever into the streamside setback, lies completely in the riparian zone, and is bisected by the front setback. The development planned by the petitioner would only be possible with the required variances to code. The proposed development is a detached single-family dwelling with an associated septic system. According to AMC 21.09.060, Table 21.09-5, Table of Dimensional Standards, Girdwood Residential Districts, lots in GR2A districts should have a minimum of 50,000 square feet without a sewer connection. The lot is 14,432 square feet in size, which is a legal nonconformity as described by the Nonconforming Determination Report 2024-0233399-0. The nonconforming determination is based on the fact that the lot was platted in 1966, which is prior to zoning. The 8 standards, in order for the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals to approve the variance, the application must state with particularity the relief sought and must specify the facts or circumstances that are alleged to show that the application substantially meets the following 8 standards. Standard A. There exist exceptional or extraordinary physical circumstances of the subject property, including but not limited to streams, wetlands, or slope. Those circumstances are not applicable to other land in the same zoning district. This standard is met. According to Municipality of Anchorage maps, this parcel has a slope of 43%. This property has an elevation difference ranging from 50 feet front to back along the southern side lot line and 20 feet front to back along the northern side lot line. Crow Creek starts in the northeast corner of this property before running in the south direction along the eastern rear lot line. Therefore, the steep slope and the stream impact are extraordinary physical circumstances to this subject property that are not applicable to other properties in the same zoning district, that is GR2A. Standard B. Because of these physical circumstances, the strict application of this code creates an exceptional or undue hardship upon the property owner and would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under terms of the zoning ordinance. This standard is met. The streamside setback, riparian edge zone setback, and property setbacks severely limit the buildable area on this lot. The streamside setback and the riparian edge zone by themselves cover more than 95% of the lot. Taking these factors into account, along with the steep slope, the impact of this on this parcel creates an exceptional and undue hardship upon the property owner. Standard C. The hardship is not self-imposed and special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant, and such conditions and circumstances do not merely constitute inconvenience. This standard is also met. The property was platted in 1966, and the specified hardship with respect to developing the lot is imposed solely by the configuration of the lot and its proximity to Crow Creek. The property owner was not involved in the platting action which created this lot, and so the hardship is not self-imposed. Standard D, the variance, if granted, will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property as permitted under this code. This standard is met. The proposed structure encroaches into the front setback and the stream setback. The lots adjacent to the property to the north and the south are vacant and will not be affected by the construction of the proposed dwelling. Lots 3 and 4, which are to the east of the property in question, have single-family dwelling units which are across Crow Creek and are located uphill of the development. The structures of these lots, thus, will not experience any adverse effects from this property. The lot immediately to the west of the property, Lot 7, is 100 feet from the subject parcel and across Crow Creek Road, and thus unlikely to be affected by this development as well. Thus, the variance will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property as permitted under this code. Standard E. The variance, if granted, does not change the character of the zoning district where the property is located. It is in keeping with the intent of the code and does not permit a use otherwise permitted in this district in which the property lies. This standard is met. These variances do not change the character of the zoning district and do not permit a use not otherwise permitted in a GR2A zoning district, that is, residential. Standard F. The variance, if granted, does not adversely affect the health, safety, and the welfare of the people of the municipality, and this standard is also met. These encroachments within the front setback and the stream setback have no known impacts on the health, safety, or welfare of the people of the municipality. The proposed building envelope does not adversely affect the properties nearby. Additionally, the building envelope encroaching into the setbacks would not pose any other significant risks. Standard G. The persons with disabilities are provided with access as required by the ADA and there is reasonable accommodation. Standard G is met as this is not applicable to single-family residences. Standard H. The variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible a reasonable use of the land. Standard H is met. This is the minimum variance that will allow the property owner to build a structure capable of functioning as a detached single-family residence. The size of neighboring houses in Raven Mountain Estates, the subdivision that this property is in, range from 1,338 square feet to 2,784 square feet. The proposed structure is 1,473 square feet, which is a reasonable use of the land. Now coming to other agency comments and public comments. Since there were no public comments, we will proceed directly to the agency comments. Reviewing agency comments are included in attachment 3 starting on page 61 of your packet. Watershed Management Services and the Traffic Engineering Department provided comments on the encroachment into the stream setback. On page 62, Watershed Management Services outlined the necessity for justification from an engineer registered in the state of Alaska that the well and the septic systems will need to meet the requirements of AMC 15.55 and AMC 15.65. On page 64, the Traffic Engineering Department provides comments about the potential impacts of parking along the privately maintained right-of-way with adjacent landowners as no parking is shown on the property. Recommendations. The department finds that all 8 standards A through H are met. Therefore, the department recommends approval of the variance subject to the conditions 1, 2, and 3 found on page 6 of your staff packet. I can answer any questions that the board may have, and the petitioner is in attendance. Thank you.
Are there any questions of staff by the board? Mr. Norris?
Yeah, and I'm going to beg rookie ignorance on this one, but there seems to be a discrepancy between the number of variances in the applicant's packet and the number that you stated. There was 2 in the packet and 3 is what I'm seeing here. I was wondering if you could help me understand that. Thank you.
Through the chair to Mr. Norris. the applicant applied for two setbacks, two variances, one from the building setbacks, property setback, that's the front setback, and the second from the stream setback in general. So the stream setback can, when we look at the stream setback from the planning department, we look at it in two two different setbacks. One is the riparian edge setback, and the second is the stream side setback. So in technical terms, it is three variances, but since the applicant was not as accustomed to code as we are, it would have been probably difficult for him to figure that out by himself.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mr. Bennett, Mr. Brian Bennett.
I've got random notes here for the staff and actually for the petitioner as well. Exception A says that there's applicable land in the same zoning district, and yet lots 6 and 8 offer the same description, long and narrow. There's approximately the same size. They have creeks on one side of them and roads on the other side. They are all sloped. There's need for wells and septic tanks on all 3 properties. How does this not make them applicable to other lands, these 2 properties on the sides of lot 7? Then, talking about the application rights commonly enjoyed, one of those rights, I believe, is going to be visibility. There's some nice pictures provided from the creek, which are essentially the shots from that property's viewpoint, but the landowners around them wouldn't have that same viewpoint. They'd be looking at the top of the roof of this property, and they looked at the creek. The intent of the code, I believe, is for protection. Protection in this case, the setbacks from your neighbors, and also protection for the natural environment of the wetlands. So the intent of the code is not being, at least in my opinion, addressed by these variances. They are in fact a way of getting around them, which will in fact lead to the same discrepancies and same problems initiated on lots 6 and 7. Although they are vacant now, they are available and would suffer the same consequences as this property would in the future. This kind of addresses the gist of what I was saying, and basically I was wondering, when does the intent of the code not become a point? Thank you.
Through the chair to Mr. Brian Bennett. The first thing that I would like to mention is that when we cite this district, it does not necessarily mean this geographical district, but rather the zoning district. So not all properties, not a majority of properties in GR2A districts would be suffering from this same situation. In this specific subdivision, that may be the case, but across all of GR2A districts, this may not be the case. The second thing, with respect to the viewpoints and how that might hamper with the neighbors' rights to views and sunlight and stuff like that, we did mail out notices allowing people to come and comment and even submit online comments. Then nobody really did. Nobody did file a complaint against that or file any sort of comment that would bring that to our attention. And with respect to the specifics of the design of the house, I believe the petitioner can better explain that than what I can. Additionally, with respect to impacts on the streams and natural environment and things along those lines, I believe that it is Watershed Management Services who make a call on that exact thing with respect to variance cases, and the only comment they provided was that about the septic system, which has to be coordinated with engineer. Other than that, they also did mention that this is, as per the comments, that this is the only way that this plat can be developed, because again, it was platted in a way that makes it very hard to develop something on this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely, it makes it difficult. It makes it impossible, actually. The other thing I was thinking of is that the section, was it E, I guess, which talks about the allowance of the variance as a minimum. He needs all 3 variances, not just any single one. And the recommendation by the municipality's water WMS Waste Management, is that they should deny the variance on page 62, I believe it is. So that was some of the leading thoughts on what I'm concerned about. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions for staff? Will the petitioner come forward, please? Could you state your name and spell it for the record? Not yet. Whenever it turns red. No, you have to hit the... What? Now. Go.
Lucas Bouvry.
Okay. Do you have any questions of staff?
No.
Okay. Then please present your case.
Well, Mr. Bouverie,
Wait. Who are you?
oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jeremy Hurst. I'm with 49 Star Surveying. Mr. Bouverie's retained me to assist him.
Okay, and then could you speak into the mic?
I'm sorry. My name is Jeremy Hurst. I'm with 49 Star Surveying. Mr. Bouverie has retained me to assist him at the meeting and to represent him.
Okay. Then please present the case.
Well, Mr. Bouverie has this lot here up Crow Creek Road. I don't know if you're familiar with this subdivision. It's near the top of Crow Creek Road, just short of the trailhead that's up there. The subdivision was created in 1966 out of patented mining claims. And when that subdivision was created, it was intended to provide lots for single-family residences. It is a subdivision that was approved at that time by the governing plating authority. And then once the municipality of Anchorage established the current zoning regulations that we all adhere to today, it then placed this lot in the predicament that it's in right now. It is a very difficult to develop lot. It is very steep. It is very narrow. And it has Crow Creek Road there, which has a 100-foot right-of-way easement. And the reason I bring up that right-of-way easement is to indicate that I know that Mr. Bennett had raised concerns about things like the view corridor and encroachment onto that front setback, which is we're trying to obtain the variance for. If this was a platted road that you would normally see in the municipality, which normally probably be 60 foot, that front setback issue would probably not be, it would not be an issue for this lot if it did not have to deal with such a large road right away. So, and then to address the concern about view corridors, in the packet, there is some conceptual drawings of the building, proposed building to be built. And you'll notice that in the three-dimensional renderings that the roof line itself is at or below the elevation of the road itself. So you pretty much have to stand on the edge of the road and look down the hill to see that structure after it's completed. And the Mr. Bouverie is also, I think, worth pointing out that he is attempting to try and build in a manner that will still protect the stream. He's gone out of his way, I think, in his explanations on his development plans to build accordingly. The structure itself is very narrow, so that it can try and attempt to at least meet those setback intentions, although it doesn't. That's why we're seeking a variance. And it's also worth noting that the objection that was presented by Kyle Cunningham from Wetlands Management, the Muni Department, where he did say that because of the fact that it is within the stream setback, that he does not recommend approval of the variance, but he also does say in his letter there, though, says 98% of the entire lot area is within the stream setback area, and thus under current code, and I stress again, current code, development of any reasonable living structure would not be allowed. Though considering lot layout and slope, the proposed building location appears to be the only possible feasible location on this property. So it seems to me that Mr. Cunningham is acknowledging that there really is no other options or lot development configurations that would be any better in his eyes. So I think that's worth noting in that regard. And then also, because I'm circling back to the age of the subdivision when it was created, and that at that time, it did meet the development standards for construction. Of course, now it does not, but that would be, this lot, it would be, I think it would be unfair to owners of lots like this, that when they were considered buildable at a time, and that Mr. Bouvier is trying to build in character of the neighborhood itself, that he is attempting as best he can possibly can to try and meet code as best he can, but still develop the site. Sure. Mr. Reed.
So thanks for your time this evening. Yeah, I don't believe the lot is impossible to build on. It's going to take a lot of tenacity and hard work, which is what I like to do. And I'll be doing a lot of the construction myself, and I'm determined to make this work. Mr. Bennett, to answer your question about the other lots possibly needing variances, I did an extensive analysis of lots 6 and 8
Yeah.
that are right above and below it, sort of on the, or north and south of that lot. And, well, lot 6 is actually really flat comparatively. And if you look close at the subdivision plat, the creek is further away from the lot. So there's, if you measure on a topo 50 feet from the creek side on that lot, you have a nice area between the front yard setback and the 50-foot stream setback where you can actually build a house with a well and septic that's not on a steep slope. So if I owned that lot, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be applying for a variance. And similarly with lot 8, to the south is sort of, that's very steep, but it has a nice larger, it's larger and has, and further away from the creek and has a nice flat area that's kind of right next to the road, where it is also feasible to build a house with a septic system and not require a variance.
I would also like to add that the lots are configured in a way that Mr. Vauvier's lot and the surrounding lots, that proper well septic separations are achievable for all of those lots, even the undeveloped lots. And I think that, so you want to add anything else to?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, I think that is stating our position there. I guess I would like to open up any questions.
Okay, you have 3 minutes left for rebuttal. Are there any questions of the applicant by board members? I guess not. Oh, sorry, Mr. Norris.
Yeah, through the chair, correct? Thank you. I noticed that under F, you looked at flood risk, and you noted that FEMA has not mapped this watershed, and so it was very difficult, but you said you could extrapolate from similar streams with topography and flow characteristics, but I was wondering if you could elaborate on that just a little bit, because it does seem to be, I understand you're being conservative and have up to a 5-foot estimated buffer there, but if things go wrong, they go really wrong, so if you could help me understand better, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. So I did extrapolate the best I could based on similar streams, but you know, I'm not FEMA, and there's no way that I can actually do that accurately. So the foundation I built as flood resistant with flood vents for the amount of square footage. so there won't be hydrostatic force applied to the foundation walls. If you guys are familiar with flood vents, okay.
I'll also add, to alleviate your concern slightly, perhaps, that whereas you're correct that the FEMA has not mapped the flood hazard, but you will note that the foundation itself is approximately 10 to 12 vertical feet above the ordinary high water line of the creek nearby.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions? Okay, sorry. Are there any questions of the applicant by the staff?
Through the chair, no.
Thank you. And seeing no one in the public that would want to testify, I would say you have 3 minutes. Is there anything else that you would like to say?
I will add that the staff recommendation or the staff conditions are reasonable and acceptable.
Okay. Then I guess we will close the public hearing.
Thank you.
And the matter rests with the board.
Thank you.
May I have a positive motion on the first variance, please? We're going to take them one at a time. Mr. Brian Bennett.
Would move to case 2024-0112 to approve the variance from the code 2109-060, table 2109-5, table of dimension standards, Girdwood Residential District, to allow the primary residence to encroach no more than 15 feet into the required 20-foot setback adjacent to the conditions shown on page 6 of the staff report.
Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Hale. Would you speak to your motion, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Brian Bennett?
Well, I think that, whoops, excuse me.
Nope, you turned it off.
Way. I just want to make the motion available to comment on it, to vote on it at this point in time. I don't have anything else to add to it, really.
Do you have, you want further discussion?
No, I'm just saying I voted to move the motion forward.
Okay.
That's all I'm doing. I don't have anything to add to the discussion.
Okay. Anybody else want to say anything about this motion? Mr. Hale.
Thank you, through the chair. You know, we've seen this before. When they were subdividing before zoning, there was no code, so there was nothing that you needed to meet. So now we have a code. It seems like when they were configuring these lots, they didn't need to adhere to any strict application of anything, and now they do. And so the reason you're here for a variance is because you have to be, which means we're not looking at strict application of the code anymore, as far as I'm concerned. We have the latitude to take into consideration topography, creek, setbacks, all that stuff. So it seems reasonable to me if you have a lot that was developed in the 60s and now is being looked at in 2024. It's I don't know what you do with it except grant variances, if you can, and it seems reasonable in this case to me to have a variance because otherwise this lot is not usable. And just because other lots in the subdivision will also require a variance, I don't think is a good reason to deny one. Could be everybody needs one. If they're all from the 60s and they can't be developed, then they need to come one at a time and come talk to us. So I'm going to support it. I think it's a good use of the board's time and good use of the variance process.
Anyone else? Mr. Brian Bennett, I would appreciate it if you could go through the standards and why they're met, or just accept what they...
The standards?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I started with A, This description again of what is available or applicable from other lands in the same zoning district, I would assume that properties next door to the property in question are in the same zoning district. That to me showed that they were applicable to other in the same zoning district. I looked at the
So you would say that you're,
I would say that there is commonality and applicable to other properties in the other lots.
so you
in the
don't
same-
see that the standard is met?
I don't see the standard as being met.
Okay.
As far as B, I think that this ties in with E in relation to the intent of the code. The application of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district. Well, if you want the same enjoyment, you could have bought Lot 6, which is available, and bigger, and flatter, but you didn't, which gets into the responsibility for the, so I don't know that, I give you, in my case, I give a yellow, which it's not really that far from being met. But there are also obligations for the property owner. And there's a book out by the name of Mr. Haas called The Bill of Obligations. And that not only do you get rights, but you have obligations as a property owner. And one of those obligations is to try and meet the code, which is in existence. And I am sympathetic to your situation, because I know that without the variances, you can't do anything with this property. And I would wonder, as a historical matter, if the property, because it was created without zoning districts, or zoning regulations, I mean, was intended never to be developed, just as a piece of property so that they could enjoy the creek from lots 5 and 4 and 3 without having any development on the other side of the creek for them to look at. So I am sympathetic to your situation. As far as C, the hardship, I don't agree that this is, I don't think that it's met the standard because you purchased the property. And I'm not sure of the date that you purchased the property, but I'm pretty, was it before or after the introduction of the codes and regulations? In other words, 2004, I think is when the codes were applied. So it is actually the self-imposed hardship because you bought the property. The variance is granted to reverse the effect. I've already said that this, I think, is that there is visual standards which have to be met. You have these really nice pictures, which I appreciate the photographs, but they're not the views that anybody of your neighbors would have of your property or across the creek to your property. They would see your house. And in those photographs that you applied, there's no other houses in the property available. As far as the E is at the intent, again, obligations to the ownership, health and safety. I did wonder what the retaining wall for the sewer would actually stop, since it's a vertical wall and horizontal distance it's being compared with. The G as ADA compliance is not applicable here, but it's certainly never going to be applicable. It's 20 plus feet to get from one level to the other, which implies about 47 steps. In your plan views, there are ledges, stops along the way of the stairs, but in the elevation, excuse me, it's the other way around. In the plan view, there are no stops along the way of the staircase, and in the elevation, in the pictorial views, there are steps, stopping areas along the way. So that, unless they're going to change the design, then it will never be ADA compliant. And as far as the variance is granted in a minimum variance that will make the reasonable use of the land, I refer to the page 47 of the report, which talks about meeting the setbacks, parking and landscaping, et cetera. I don't know where you're going to park or how you're going to get any parking. There is parking on lot 9, but not on 6, not on 7. I don't think it's possible with the slope of the property. So in those regards, I didn't think that it met the standards of being accepted as a variance.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Hale.
Thank you through the chair. I would just say that if purchase of the property is a condition that creates a self-imposed hardship, then we don't really need a board. We could all go home.
Well,
Mr. Craig Bennett.
Yeah, thank you. I'm in support of this. I see that staff saying that all 8 standards are met for the 3 variances, and I have to trust the planning professionals in their opinion. And I do see that there are conditions, and the petitioner agrees with the 2 conditions of administrative site plan review and having a engineer review the well and septic. So I feel that with those, there will be protections. So I will be in support.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Romerdahl?
Through the chair, I also intend to support the motion after review of staff's comments and recommendations. I would tend to agree with them. Obviously, an incredibly challenged lot, and I feel like the effort made by the applicant to kind of fit within pretty tight limitations, if you will, shows the effort put forward to meet the, I guess, the intent, even if it demands variances to do so. So, thanks.
Anybody else? Are you ready for the question? Looks like it. The question is on the adoption of the motion to grant a variance to allow the primary residence to encroach no more than 15 feet into the required 20-foot front setback, subject to the condition shown on page 6 of the staff report. A yes vote will grant the variance, and a no vote will deny the variance. Please vote. There are 6 votes in the affirmative and 1 vote in the negative, and therefore the variance is granted. Moving on to the second variance. May I have a positive motion, please? In a minute. It's coming, it's coming. Moved by Mr. Hale. Mr. Hale.
Thank you, through the chair. I move in case 2024-0112 to approve a variance from AMC 21.07.020B.9, table 21.07-1, minimum stream setback width per side, to allow the same residence to encroach completely into the 25-foot riparian edge zone, subject to the conditions shown on page 6 of the staff report.
Seconded by Mr. Lang. Will you speak to your motion, please, Mr. Hale?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I agree with staff's comments in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. I agree with all of their findings, and I intend to support the motion.
Mr. Lang.
Thank you. I also intend to support the motion. The plat, when it was recorded in '66, did not take into consideration any sort of stream setback, and the riparian setbacks are a relatively new invention.
Anybody else? If we're ready for the question, then the question is on the adoption to allow the same residence to encroach completely into the 25-foot riparian edge zone, subject to the conditions shown on page 6. A yes vote will grant the variance, a no vote will deny the variance. Please vote. There are 6 votes in the affirmative and 1 vote in the negative. The variance is granted. Moving on to the third variance in a minute. Can I have a positive motion, please? Moved by Mr. Craig Bennett. Mr. Bennett?
I'm moving case 2024-0112 to approve a variance from AMC 21.07.020B.9, Table 21.07-1, minimum stream setback width per side to allow the resident's second floor cantilever to encroach no more than 7 feet into the 25-foot stream side zone setback, subject to the conditions shown on page 6 of the staff report.
Seconded by Mr. Romerdahl. Will you speak to your motion, please, Mr. Craig Bennett?
Yeah, thank you. I see that all 8 of the standards are met, and staff recommends approval.
Mr. Romerdahl?
Through the chair, I also intend to support the motion. I agree with staff's recommendation on all standards.
Anyone else? The question is on the adoption of the resident's second floor cantilever to encroach no more than 7 feet into the 25-foot streamside zone setback, subject to the condition shown on page 6. A yes vote will grant the variance, and a no vote will deny the variance. Please vote. There are 6 votes in the affirmative, 1 vote in the negative, so the motion passes and the variance is granted. That's it. Next thing on the agenda, reports. Report from the chair. Well, we lost 2 members, we gained 2 members, and we're still 2 members short. So I would like to welcome back Mr. Lang and welcome Mr. Norris. Secretary, do we have a meeting next month? Okay. No committees? Anybody want to comment? Mr. Norris?
Yeah, I don't want to belabor any points, but I just noticed that the consent agenda tonight had 2024-0091, which was a setback in Girdwood, and this likewise was a setback in Girdwood, and AO 2024-114 is before the Assembly for Girdwood's comp plan update, and I'm wondering, are they addressing this, or is this likely to be an ongoing issue? Thank you.
Melissa?
I'm sorry to say, Chair, I do not know if they are addressing this particular issue in the comp plan. I would doubt that. But they are planning on presenting a S version of the comp plan at the Assembly on this meeting on the 17th. So we will see then. Thank you.
Okay, if that's it, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Mr. Brian Bennett moves.
Second.
Mr. Lang? Mr. Lang seconds. We are adjourned.